Hello, Laoshi Laurince McElroy here from Water Tiger School with another in our pre-recorded video series for our YouTube channel. A channel that we began back in the early days, the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. When was that? Like 10 years ago? Feels like it anyway. So here we are, continuing with a little bit of original content. Now we are keeping things posted on a regular basis on the YouTube channel, but what we do now weekly is upload old Facebook Live stuff every week and sprinkle in every once in a while some original content. So that's what we're going to do today. A little original content, a little compare and contrast different approaches to the standing side stretch, or to a standing side stretch. So a yoga version, what could be considered a Qigong version, and what could be considered sort of a Tai Chi version of a side stretch. So there you go. Now I want you to keep in mind through your participation or watching of this video that what we tend to do is seek to find the familiar and focus on the similarities between different things. And what we should do in relation to these arts is actually seek to embrace, explore, and understand the differences. So that's a little bit of our theme between these three side stretches. Now, since I'm not exactly sure, when you may be watching this and what you may be doing, for instance, you probably wouldn't need to warm up to do any sort of stretching if you've just finished doing something, or if you've been out and about doing other things and the muscles are warm and the joints are moving, that sort of thing. But I'm going to start with a little warm up because that's what I normally do if I'm going to focus on stretching. So I'm going to get a little timer out. We'll do a little march two ways. So make your hands to the targets, either fists or palms down. Oh, we've done this several times, but I think the last time, a couple weeks ago, when we did a deep drill into the split leg hamstring stretch, I didn't talk about bringing your knees to the targets, not the targets to the knees. So if you have a little bit lower range of motion, then the targets are down. Bigger range of motion, up. Now we're going to widen the knees. Again, if you have a little bit shorter range of motion, down here. You can do the palms, fists, you can mix it up. Usually do 20-second intervals, but because I wanted to get the target thing in, I went to 30. So we got about another 10 seconds left. And we're going to run three ways and call it a game. 2 and 1. Run in place, knees up. You don't have to go really high and vigorous unless you want to. You also don't have to go as high as I'm going, right? Just heels and toes barely off the ground. We're going to do 20 seconds here. Knees forward first, just like the march, and then knees out, just like the march. Looks a little bit silly, but the changes up where the heat and the blood and the oxygen is going in leg muscles. We're also going to do a little introduction to each of the side stretches. And now, third way, knees down, heels up. Little ballistic quad stretch here for 20 seconds. And a little upper body thing. We'll talk for a bit and get into the first stretch. All right. So go ahead. I like to keep the lower body moving. Huggers should be enough for the upper body because you really want to let them swing back. Create that ballistic stretch in the shoulders, chest, and upper back. And now my hands are just relaxed. You can also do a spread and slap, really activate the hands when they're out. Always switching the cross, right hand and left hand over the front. Also do palm up, palm down, palm down, palm up. Feel those differences and shake that out. So I'm warm now. I'm going to remove a layer. So the stretch that I know is the standing side stretch, or the one hand standing side bend. And as always, when I do these things, I'm not going to attempt the Sanskrit. From a yoga perspective, what we're doing is lengthening and deepening the respiratory rhythm, that we are loosening and opening up the spine, removing tension and compression of the spinal nerves. In opening up the spine, in lengthening and softening the spine, you can have you can increase your range of motion to the spine. It's more flexible. You can which brings a feeling of lightness and buoyancy to the body, and can also result in a feeling of no guarantees, serenity, and happiness. You want to really focus on the breath as you're doing this stretch. You want to focus on that sense of opening the chest and the ribs outwards as you're inhaling, kind of like a balloon. With that, you can sort of feel the way the breath has an impact on the torso itself as well as the internal organs. And remember, like all stretches that we talk about, regardless, yoga, Qigong, physical training stretches, use the breath to sort of open up anywhere where you're tight. So if you're feeling a tightness, a restriction, breathe into that tightness or restriction. So again, what I know is the standing side stretch. Now, just a reminder, if you haven't been here for any of the yoga presentations that we've done over the last few months, I practice yoga more as a stretch. So I normally don't get into all of the basic details. I'm looking at doing yoga for a stretch. Now, with the standing side stretch, some people will do them with their feet apart. And sometimes that's necessary, right? If you're on a softer surface, if your feet are right side by side, you can lose your balance, so you might need a little bit of distance. You may have hip, quad issues that require the feet to be apart. But I like to do the standing side stretch with my feet together. Now, the lower body here, I want to be rooted, just as always. I don't want to just push the knees back, but I want what we normally refer to as the straight and strong leg of yoga, which is the feet are grounded to the earth. And it's almost like my upper body is filled with helium, and it's lifting up and lengthening the legs. You want that same sense between the crown point of the head and the base of the spine. So I'm lengthening the spine as well, which is different than our chest sunk, back rounded, chin from parallel, slight tuck down, back way, crown point of the head, held to the heavens. Held is different than lifted. I hope you saw that difference. Held, lifted. Don't want any joints in this stretch. So the arms are going to be straight. Sometimes they tend to bend. There are some things you can do to take care of that. Now, I will also point out that, if you have a shoulder impingement or something, you can't do the full range of motion. What you want to do is find where your range of motion ends, keeping the arms straight, and manifest it that way as best you can. Now, I like to start a yoga stretch, the standing side stretch, in prayer hands. Some people call this namaste, perfectly understandable, but if you truly know the translation of namaste, you'd know that just call it prayer hands. Breathe when you have to. I'm going to talk about a particular breath pattern, getting into it. Lost my straight and strong legs, getting those back, re-lengthening the spine. Find an exhalation. Inhale now. Different ways to get the hands up, but I like to drop them first and come up. And notice here, I'm not lifting the shoulders, I'm lifting up and out of the torso. Find an inhale, and then exhale. Over. Notice, no joint here. Palm down. Not forward, not back, but down. I have my fingertips together. You can do that sort of starfish thing with the fingertips open. That's okay. Breathe. I just let this arm rest against the side of the body. I don't let it hang dead. And I also am not reaching toward the floor. Chin turns up into the biceps, and you're looking at, through the elbow fold. Now, if you're really supersonic flexible, you can get your chin on the outside of that arm. But notice the arm is in the plane of the torso, not in front of it, but in the plane of the torso. A few breaths here. I'm reaching the left over to the right, which means my right hip is in, my left hip is out. A couple more breaths. It's like any stretch, exploring the stretch on the exhalation, pausing that exploration on the inhale. Regardless, find an exhale. Inhale, both hands up, and exhale over to the other side. I'm just looking, okay. Boom. You might see this or feel this happen. The elbow bends, up, lengthen, come back in. Fingertips to hip. Breathing, stretching, exploring. You can really breathe how you want. You can have sound here. We're doing yoga, not tai chi. A lot of yoga players will inhale in through the nose and exhale through the mouth. I still tend to stay as much as, what can I say, I'm nosy. One more breath here. Find an inhalation, reaching up, and an exhalation, coming back in. So, for me, it's a standing side stretch. People do it differently, people refer to it differently, but for me, that's yoga's standing side stretch. Feet together, though a lot of times when I'm cooling down from an upper body workout, I'll have the feet apart because that'll bring some of the stretch a little bit more up into the upper chest and back and torso. So remember, palm down in the plate of the body, not palm out, not in front. This arm, for me, relaxed, but against the side of the body. So there's standing side stretch. The yoga side stretch. Here, next, from the 9 temple exercises, there's a little thing we call picking the fruit or pick the fruit. And it is still side stretchy. However, when we focus on this, couple of things. The breath becomes more of the breath that we're accustomed to when we're doing most things Tai Chi and Qigong, and that it should be a quiet and relaxed breath. And here, with the aspect of where our focus is, it's on the torso. And in traditional Chinese medicine, in Qigong energy work, and in Tai Chi, we refer to the torso as the Sanjia. Now again, my Chinese is awful, so I'm not really sure what I just said, but what I meant to say was triple burner. And it's called the triple burner, the Sanjia, because the pathways of energy, the meridians of qi, and the organs in the torso are related to 3 processes, and that is respiration, digestion, and elimination. So we're focusing on that idea of this stretch because we go back and forth between the 2 sides, that you have an extension stretch on one side and sort of a compression or a compression stretch on the other side. You move through the center, both of those are released and going to the other side. Now what was extended before is compressed, and what was compressed before is now extended. So you're massaging the internal components of your torso through that muscular activation and relaxation, thus increasing the flow of blood and qi into the Sanjia. This exercise is also meant to open up the tendons, the muscles, and the joints within the upper body, the spine again, but specifically the arm, the hand, and the fingers. And that's sort of done with the reaching toward your piece of fruit. You don't want to lock off any joints. Within this, you still want them to be open, but really reach for that aspect, the fruit for which you are trying to pick. Yeah, I'll get the words there. They're English, folks. So There are some other differences between this and the standing side stretch. One of the similarities here is, like the standing side stretch, I'm going to be ideally reaching within the plane of my torso, not out in front of it, but in the plane. Now, some people have shoulder issues that disallows them from doing the standing side stretch because the arm has to be in the front plane for them because of some shoulder impingement or chest or upper back. Now, I tend to just say, those people in that stretch, because I'm not, the modification sort of destroys what that particular stretch is. What we can do here is, if I can't be in the plane, what I imagine is somebody's putting their hand behind that hand and keeping me from getting in my range of motion. So I'm pressing back as I'm also lifting across, and that will activate the muscles in the arm, in the torso, in the Sangio, in a way that is very similar to what would happen if the arm was in the torso. Also, a difference here, both arms actually stay up. So it's like, okay, I'll give you my wallet. Right? And they stay up, and you're switching back and forth from side to side. Now, a lot of people who do picking the fruit, either this pick the fruit or the second one that is more Tai Chi based, will go right straight up. Now, I can feel an extension on this side, a slight compression on this side, but it's also a slight extension. So what I like to do, instead of putting that piece of fruit right up there, is move it over way across my center line on both sides. So if I'm reaching with the left hand and left arm, I'm way over here on the right, and the piece of fruit is right there. So that increases the degree of extension and the degree of compression. And so one of the ways you can modify is don't arc as much. So something to keep in mind. Something else that we do in this pick the fruit is a little similar to side stretch, but different. And that once again, I'm going to be looking up. Because in this exercise, in this stretch, we want to look to the piece of fruit. But the structure is different. When I'm here in the standing side stretch, I'm turning my head and looking toward the eye of the elbow in a way that it changes sort of the way the vertebrae of the neck, the cervical vertebrae, are structured. In the 9 temple exercises, I'm really arcing back instead of turning this way. So you really, really have to be careful of what you do with that neck. Because if I just let it drop back, you're folding the cervical vertebrae one on top of the other. They do not like to be folded that way. They grind. Grinding and crunching, not good in neck. Grinding good for coffee, crunching good for chips, not for vertebrae. So you want to be very, very careful. You can sort of do a little external methodology. I like to do both hands. Some people do this with one hand, but that doesn't offer you full support. You could do both hands, fingers interlocked, and then start to look up. And what will happen is, like, you have your own natural neck brace there, and it'll pull the vertebrae into place, and then you let the hands go. Right? The internal version, what you do is push the chin, the nose forward and around, going up. Now, sort of like what I said with ranges of motion in other aspects, if you can get a nice arc here and you're comfortable with it, great. Some people will be, the chin won't be quite as high, the eyes won't be quite as up, but you can still catch in your peripheral vision where that piece of fruit is on both sides. Some may have to do what we do in the third side stretch, which is just keep the eyes forward, the neck in its vertical structure, and just know where that piece of fruit is. Here the feet are shoulder wide. Here the knees are open. Here my starting position is with this chest sunk in the back, rounded, the chin from parallel, a slight tuck down. And again, in this one, both hands are up throughout, but as you switch back and forth, there's a little bit of a change. And then I think I got all of it. So careful of the vertebrae of the neck as you look up, reach up, and again, hands in the plane of the torso. Also notice palms are forward here, not in and down like they were in the first stretch. I'm going to go left first, breathing, Now maybe beginning on that exhalation to execute the stretch. We're going to hold it a little while. Again, notice I have joints here. I have joints in the fingers as well, but I'm still reaching. Now make that piece of fruit real. So for me it's a peach because a peach has fuzz, so I'm tickling the fuzz at the bottom and release. That makes me want it all the more. Second side, 2 of 6. We're just doing 3 pairs here. You can also pick pears. It doesn't have to be peaches, but I like peaches because of the fuzz. Suppose you could do coconuts. They have hair. Nice compression on the inside, feeling that, the extension on the outside. Release in through the center. Back to the first side, 3 of 6, halfway home. In the plane of the torso. Weight's really equally divided between the 2 feet. I almost said 3 feet. What? Release. I'm arcing over to the left with the right hand, so I'll feel an emphasis go in the left foot, but I'm not shifting the weight that way. And both of the feet are flat on the earth, grounded. And release. Last to the first side, picking the fruit or pick the fruit from the 9 temple exercises. Feeling that compression on the outside, or extension on the outside, compression on the inside. Release. And last time, second side. Shoulder, space between the shoulder, the neck, and the head. I'm not doing this, doing this. After that last reach to the second side, returning to the center where we started, and carefully, because you've had that arc in the cervical vertebrae, lower the chin slowly as you also lower the hands. Now, for whatever reason, probably because of the way that it was drilled into me when I first learned the 9 temple exercises about 30 years ago, I don't close any of the individual exercises of the 9, nor the set at the end, and that's pretty uncommon for myself and for things Water Tiger. So that's 2. That's version 2. Version 3 is, again, pick the fruit. And it came from, a different source that did it differently than I do it now. If you know Laoshi Laurince McElroy and Things Water Tiger School, we tend to take things and turn up the volume a little bit. So, and it always reminds me, this particular exercise, by the way, of a line from an old television series it started about 20 years ago. It was on for, I want to say, 7 or 8 seasons. It was The West Wing. And in one episode, one of the characters, Sam Seaborn's talking, he was a speechwriter, and he's talking about speech writers. And he says something along the lines of, good speechwriters borrow without issue. Great speechwriters steal outright. I think the same thing can be said for Tai Chi players. So, yes, I took this from somebody, stole it, and sort of made it my own. So it's softer, yet you'll notice sort of a difference in the 3. The standing side stretch from yoga, the most intense. Pick the fruit from the 9 temple exercises, not quite as intense as the standing side stretch, but still pretty much up there. And then this one, which is a little intense, but not much, and can be softened greatly. So we refer to this as Pick the Fruit 2.0. Now, to give you an idea of how different I've made it, really the main reason, or the main objective of the person from whom I stole this, was just to get the body moving. So what they did was this. Just to sort of, get the arms up, have a little separation between the 2 sides, and create a little vertical stretch from side to side. That ain't the way that I do this. Right? So just, once again, like the 9 temple exercises version, the feet are going to be shoulder wide, the knees are going to be open. Here, the arms, the hands, stay in the front plane of the body. So you don't have to worry about that range of motion. You get the hand or the arm in the front plane, in the plane of the body. They stay in the front plane. So you have that. Now, I tend to, when I instruct this in a public venue or an event, to point people toward the piece of fruit being on their center line. So you get a little bit of an arc. Fruit can be a little bit higher. I like to go to the other side of my center line, so I turn up the volume a little bit. You don't have to. Center line is fine. But again, I don't want it right straight up. I just feel like that does not create enough activation. Another difference here, and where we start to get into the realm of what we do in Tai Chi, is that there's a separation between the sides. Now, I was talking before in the standing side stretch that the arm is down there, it's not hanging, it's resting. Here, I want that second arm to hang. I really want it to be completely flaccid and really allowing gravity to grab it, lengthen it, and pull it toward the ground. I'm not reaching. And one of the reasons for that is to really experiment and experience that separation from one side to the other. Because a lot of people, when they first experience this exercise, will find that they're reaching that second arm to the ground because we tend to want to do the same thing from one side to the other. For instance, some of you may know our Shaolin hand exercises. We actually have a video coming up in the rotation in the queue that's about an aspect of the hand exercise. But this is tiger claw, all 5 digits closing and opening. And a lot of people will do that, and there'll be a little echo. I don't know if you can see that my left hand sort of mimicking what my right hand is doing. You can see that across the room when we're doing the hand exercises. So you want to keep that separate. Because we're doing things in our Tai Chi where one hand is doing something and it's different to the other hand. So we want to have that, two sides of the body can do two separate things, right? Like patting your head and rubbing your stomach. So this helps us to build that understanding where we can do that kind of thing. So anyway, I think I got, one more thing, right? The other exercise, here we were just sort of, one hand and then the other in the standing side stretch. We had one hand arc and then we came back and went to the other side. Here we're switching back and forth, but we want to find that connection between the two sides. So it's not that one hand is going up and the other hand is coming down. It's that they are intimately linked together. The hand that's dropping is causing the other hand to rise. The hand that's rising is causing the other hand to drop. They meet at about halfway, and they should both reach the apex of their extension up and down at about the same time, and then just explore that range of motion within that. So keep that in mind. There's something else that just came up as I was talking about that, but I can't remember what it was. So we'll start neutral, a little shake. It's the last one, folks, so we're close to the end in this particular video. And choose a side. I'm going to start with the left. Oh, that was it. My eyes are forward throughout this, right? If you didn't notice during all that demonstration, I'm looking right at you. I'm looking right at the camera. You should be looking right at the screen. No turn, no arc. I just know where that piece of fruit is. But again, it's got peach fuzz, so I still want that same reach that we had and release in picking the fruit from the 9 temple exercises. What was up is going down. What was down is rising up, and really let that arm that's down be embraced by gravity. Really reach for that piece of fruit, be it a peach, a pear, a coconut. Release, that's 1 pair, going to 3 pair, that's 2 of 6, if you like to count repetitions that way. I think I mentioned at the top of this that this is take 2 today. Take 1, at some point, just stopped recording. We didn't notice. Recorded only about 3 minutes of the video that went on for, at this length of time, plus some. Second to the second side. Again, a little bit milder extension stretch, a little bit milder compression stretch, but still getting both. Back to the first side. Last one. 5 of 6. And one more time. 6 of 6. And my spine's loving this particular video. Now to end, same way we began. So we began with just one hand going up and the other hand hanging. Here we end with one hand going down and the other hanging. And again, no close here. And there you go. Side stretch, side stretch, side stretch. Yoga, more or less Qigong, more or less Tai Chi based. Always, always, always paying attention, being mindful, focusing more on the differences than simply putting your mind in the similarities and staying there. So that's our perspective, that's our point of view. I hope you agree with us on that point at least, if nothing else. So thanks again, as always, Sheshe, for your attention. I hope this was helpful for those of you who know these particular stretches within the Water Tiger School lineage. If you don't know them, here's your introduction. Maybe you do them differently. So you just experience a new point of view. I always find, and it's a perspective of Water Tiger School, that the more you experience, even things that are done differently than what you normally do, even if you want to stay with the way you're currently doing it, it challenges your perception, your understanding of what it is you do, and either strengthens the reason you do it the way that you do, or begins to convince you, maybe I should look at a different way of doing this. So, not sure when the next original content will be uploaded, probably much later in August, but we will be uploading still more of what I said at the top of this particular video on a weekly basis. Old Facebook Live sessions from early on. We're in about the second or third week, I think, of April by the time we get into next week. And then we will be taking a week off. Water Tiger School is going mostly dark for a week. So there won't be any old stuff uploaded, any new stuff uploaded. We won't have Facebook Live sessions, that sort of thing. It's the remote studio classes, because we are still remote. Right, in New York State on the Isle of Length. Yes, New York State Forward is in phase 4 of the reopening, but martial arts studios are considered and classified as gyms and recreational facilities, and by state determination, it is not safe to reopen them at this time. And though an argument could be made that our kind of program has much less risk than a program in a gym or in a recreational facility, that we'd be able to hold our classes safely, and I really do believe we can. But I'm not going to argue with the state on that, and it puts students at risk just getting between home and the studio. So home isolation, the remote classes are serving. So why not for now, until we make sure that the curve stays down, stay at home. Wear a damn mask. Not only for yourself, but for others. Because even if you feel, for instance, that you could survive an infection, there are others who are out and about who cannot. So be humane. Wash your hands. Stay at home. I'll get off my soapbox. I guess it's not really a soapbox. It's a 12-pound medicine ball. And call it a video. So thanks. By the way, we have changed the comment parameters on our YouTube videos. I'm not sure what we're doing wrong, that we get a lot of spam stuff posted. So we've gone to not restricting comments, but all comments we're requesting that we get first crack at whether or not they're published. But if you have a comment, have a comment. Otherwise, reach out to us through other means and other social media, and we'll, respond accordingly. So, thanks everyone. Take care. Be safe. Ta.